in every playoff game that a player plays. But Game 7 seems different.
I've been saving my guap, I ain't saving no sad. Put out my but I picked up a stick.
Puts it in. Luka Doncic, red hot to start Game 7.
Don't have to chase me, I don't like the waiting. I swear I'm impatient, I don't like.
Here's Leonard on the drive and the finish. Kawhi Leonard. Everything going Leonard and the Clippers' way.
I mean, we just fought hard. We never gave up.
A huge turnaround for the LA Clippers.
They pushed us. We stuck in there. We hung in there. We played for one another. On to the next.
He is Jalen Rose. I'm David Jacoby. We are Jalen and Jacoby. What exactly is it that we do,
people,
Mr. Rose?
what they want.
The Nets won a big Game 1. The Hawks won a big Game 1, but we start the show with Game 7 yesterday in Los Angeles, and it was Kawhi Leonard reminding everyone that he is Kawhi Leonard, and under pressure, he does not crack. Jalen, what do you think about the Clippers winning this tight series against the Mavs?
This was all about Kawhi Leonard, and we talk about playoff versions of Robert Horry, Big Shot Bob, or Rajon Rondo. There's a playoff Kawhi too. If you notice when we talk about the MVP race, he's not included. It's not because the Clippers weren't a high seed. It's because he's become the face psychologically of load management. And when the playoffs come, he takes it to a whole different level. And let me tell you what level that is. When Kawhi start dunking. When is the last time you seen Kawhi have like 3 or 4 dunks in a game? He getting tip dunks, he getting drive dunks in the half court. You seen him go baseline and do a 2-hand dunk.
Yep.
Like, that's when he's not playing around. You know when you the pickup master. You know when you play basket or a foul. You know when they say board man gets paid. You see him down there grabbing boards, getting and ones. Oh, and on the other end, I got Luka.
Yep.
I got Luka. Now, by the way, ain't nobody slow Luka down. We gonna get to Luka later, because ain't nobody slowing Luka down. But just the thought that he was gonna take on the challenge, had some great possessions, got some great steals, and really set the tone for that Clippers team who was on the ropes, went 7 games with the Mavs, and found a way to advance.
Absolutely, and as much as this was about Kawhi Leonard, they needed some contributions from other people as well, and they got them. Man had some buckets in the first half. Reggie Jackson, former Piston. Luke Kennard, another former Piston. Luke Kennard played 10 minutes and had 11 boards, hit a couple threes. Like, they got key contributions from other players aside from Kawhi Leonard, which they're going to need if they are going to advance in the Western Conference. You did mention we're going to talk about Luka, and this is probably going to be one of the last times we talk about Luka, so let's give this superstar his flowers right now as he performed in Game 7.
And I also want to acknowledge Morris, too, who was knocking down threes for the Clippers. And last but not least, as you show Luka, here's the hat tip I want to give Luka. The ultimate chess move in this series was that they benched Patrick Beverley. Like, just think about something. He's been with that team the last couple of years as their starting point guard. Tyronn Lue was the assistant last year. A squad that had Montrezl Harrell as the 6th man of the year and Patrick Beverley as their starting point guard. A year later, both of those guys are getting DNPs in the playoffs. One, I believe, didn't deserve it in Montrezl Harrell. And 2, this is what was needed because that scoring from Reggie Jackson and man that you just talked about, they really needed it. And so I give Ty Lue a lot of credit. But Luka was outstanding. Not only the points, but the assists. He just continues to dazzle. The goal for the Dallas Mavs is who do we put around Luka? Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be a free agent. You won't get the same value if you tried to move Porzingis. And so what are they going to do to build around Luka? That's the next thing in Dallas because he has elevated himself into not only superstar status, but top player in the game conversation.
You bring in Porzingis to be that big 2, to be the secondary scorer for Luka, and it just did not play out that way this season. We'll see what the Mavs do this offseason because Luka needs more help, and we'll see how they try to get it to him. They're in a bit of a pickle. But Jalen Rose, I'm disappointed in you. I'm disappointed in you, my brother. 10 years we've been doing this show, and you've never been more wrong as you are about the Nets-Bucks series. You picked the Bucks. I picked the Nets. Game 1. James Harden, he goes off in the first minute, and the Bucks still have no answer because they are balling like KD and Kyrie. Jalen Rose, I'm predicting that tomorrow on the show, you will change your pick after the Bucks are down 0-2. What do they need to change after getting beat by the Nets in Game 1?
See, in watching Kyrie dazzle with the Cavs and win his championship and watching KD do the exact same thing, you know, I don't know if I just am so much rooting for Giannis that I want to see him advance and be happy in Milwaukee and possibly win a championship there for a long time. But here's what got to happen. He need to play more minutes in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The numbers that you see Giannis getting, in particular the points in the paint, he could have got another 6 to 10 points if he just played more minutes. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing from the Bucks. Are they going to extend Drew Holiday? Are they going to extend Chris Middleton? Of course, they need to make their shots. And KD and Kyrie are virtually unstoppable. But I have to say this. You can't lose James Harden and then lose that game, Milwaukee.
I know.
I picked y'all. I'm riding with y'all. And since you're talking about former Pistons, shout to Blake Griffin, who played well. Mike James, their bench mob, played well. Harris played well. And so it was a total team effort by the Nets. But I was really disappointed in the Bucks. When they lose Harden in the first minute, you got to grab that game.
I want to take it behind the curtain.
It's going to be a long series, but you got to grab that game.
I was watching this game with Jalen Rose, and every time Giannis had the ball, all he said was, don't settle, don't settle, don't settle. He just wants to see Giannis drive to the basket every single possession, and that might be the best strategy for the Milwaukee Bucks. We had another very interesting Game 1 in the Eastern Conference. This was in Philly. The whole question was, will Joel Embiid play? Guess what? Joel Embiid played. But also, guess what? Joel Embiid did not take the Sixers to the win. It was Trae Young and the Hawks that got the big Game 1 win in Philadelphia. What was the key to their victory?
Listen up and get this game. And make sure you repeat this like it's yours, like I do Jacoby quotes. This is a contrast of styles, okay? The Philadelphia Sixers are the only team that their two best players don't primarily shoot the three. And that's Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid.
Good point.
Well, it's just the opposite for the Hawks because their best player is a four-level scorer in Trae Young that can shoot from the logo like Steph Curry and Dame Lillard. So for Philadelphia, you should watch for points in the paint with Joel Embiid's post-ups and drives, with Ben Simmons drives in transition. But for the Hawks, I want you to watch their pick and rolls. And while Joel Embiid is going to be dominant on the other end because nobody can stop Joel Embiid, he's the most physically skilled, imposing guy we have in the game. And based on that, how can we make him work? We're going to put him in pick and roll. And each time the Hawks get into their half-court set, I don't care if it's Herter, I don't care if it's Bogdanovich, I don't care if it's Trae Young, you're going to see a single pick and roll with Joel Embiid's man, or staggered, where his man is the second screener. That's why you see these lobs to Collins. You saw Trae Young getting a chance to do his runner and floater and turn the corner, but also get himself going at the beginning of the game. So it's going to be a contrast of styles. It's going to be interesting to see if they choose to start Thibault at the beginning of the game versus letting him get going like he did against Danny Green.
Well, you make a good point about Joel Embiid. For someone who was in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year, the Hawks kind of picked on him, and Trae Young is such a dynamic scorer. That floater, don't sleep on that floater. He doesn't need to get to the rim to score because Joel Embiid will drop back so far that Trae Young he's just like, fine, I'll just float that right there. I'll float that right there. And now, Mr. Rose, we have big news in the National Football League. Julio Jones is no longer with the Falcons. He is now on the Tennessee Titans with Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, and Julio Jones. No one wants to tackle the Titans. No one wants to tackle the Titans. What does he mean for the Titans and the AFC?
The number one thing is a level of relevancy that now we're going to be talking about their team versus any other team that Julio could have gone to. Right now, we'll be talking about the Seahawks. We'll be talking about the Ravens. We'll be talking about the Niners. So now when you have Derrick Henry, who just ran for 2,000 yards, you have A.J. Brown, who's a legitimate wide receiver number one, and then you add the future Hall of Famer and Julio Jones, their red zone offense should be stupid. Their red zone offense should be unstoppable because both of those guys at receiver can physically block and obviously catch in the red zone against any coverage. But also you got Derrick Henry, the ultimate power back, who, by the way, doesn't catch out of the backfield. So here's the other thing about a Derrick Henry. He's a 3-4 down back, but he doesn't catch out of the backfield. So now you can use your short passing game with Julio and A.J. Brown to actually suffice. I like this for Tannehill. I like this for the Titans. If you're going to compete in the AFC, you got to put some points up on the board and be able to control the clock. They now have a chance to do both.
I like this for the Titans. I like this for Tannehill, but I also like this for Derrick Henry. You cannot load up in the box when you have Brown and Julio on the outside. You just cannot focus on Derrick Henry, and I think he's going to run for another 2,000 yards this year with this addition to the offense. Jalen Rose, we have another update on Aaron Rodgers. He is going to cost himself 5 figures by not showing up at camp, but will the receivers show up?
Good Lord, that's a lot of money.
Will the receivers show up? We'll find out. You're watching Jalen and Jacoby. The Packers president says the fans are divided. I have a question for you. Is there any fan divided about this? It seems like they're all not divided in the fact that they want Aaron Rodgers to show up and play for the Packers.
First off, he shouldn't be talking right now. He should not be talking right now because he's the guy that helped start this mess in a lot of ways by taking Jordan Love. You see, the head coach wants no parts of those shenanigans. The other thing I want to say is the fans ain't divided. They saw him win MVP last year. They saw their team go to the NFC Championship the last 2 years. And you know what fans want to do? Win. And he can help you do that. So this idea that they're divided, that's just in your mind, sir, because you're trying to create the good old, hey, Aaron really doesn't want to be here, fans, so now boo him because he doesn't like Green Bay anymore. No, we're not rolling with that. He's been there for 15 plus years. He got 0 guaranteed money on his deal. How would you be if you was with a company for 15 plus years and you had 0 guaranteed money on your deal? He looking around the league. Every other quarterback that's a starting quarterback has guaranteed bread. Why don't he? He won't be there, Jacoby, and don't be surprised when he isn't.
One thing that's interesting about this, if you remember, the wide receivers didn't show up earlier. We'll see which wide receivers show up for camp without Aaron Rodgers. And we have some other news kind of similar. Remember Russell Wilson was in a similar situation with the Seahawks. People were putting him on the Bears. People were putting him on the trading block. However, he will report to OTAs and be the quarterback for the Seahawks. Jalen, I'm going to ask you a question. You previously predicted this would be his last year with the Seahawks. Do you still feel the same way?
I do feel the same way. And I was looking at that Titans deal, right? So they got Julio for a second and a fourth. Did I read that right? You know my vision ain't the best. If you're Seattle, why are you not trying to do that for Russell? Like, they gotta really, like y'all have to do something special in order to keep this guy in town. Instead, they did just the opposite. So I do stick to my prediction. It's gonna be an exciting season. He's a fantastic elite level top quarterback. And Metcalf and Lockett are gonna be going crazy. And you know how much I love Carson in the backfield, so very underrated. But you gotta get Julio if you have the chance. They didn't do so. This will be his last year.
This will be Russell Wilson's last year with the Seahawks. Jalen Rose said it first right here on Jalen and Jacoby. And Jalen, you and I were talking about this next series that we're going to discuss, and that is the upcoming series between the Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns. And you and I did something that is the key to this series. Tell the people what we unearthed that will swing this series.
Well, we like to go deeper than Atlantis, into the box score. And I have a little exercise for you NBA fans out there. When you get a chance, tell me to back up for DeAndre Ayton.
Yep.
Good luck with that.
He don't
Dario
exist.
Saric, Frank hasn't been a tank since he got to the NBA. And Crowder's 6'6", and so is Cam Johnson, 6'8". And so what I see is whatever Jokic averaged in the previous series, he about to put those numbers on steroids, Luka style this series. I'm expecting like 40 on average. And by the way, I don't just throw out these numbers like players are getting these very easy. Like Luka's numbers, have you ever seen somebody hit like 46 and 14 in the game 7?
Routinely.
Right?
Let me tell you what's going to happen, Jay.
All phases.
Let me tell you what's going to happen. Jokic is going to put 2 fouls on Ayton in the first 5 minutes. Monty Williams is going to call a timeout, look at the bench, and just be like, I don't know. He's gonna look at the bench and be like, I don't even know what to do. We're gonna put Frank Kaminsky on the MVP of the league right now for like 15 minutes in a row. Like Ayton needs to stay out of foul trouble. This is the key to the series. These Suns just don't have someone for Jokic. They just do not have someone that can cover him outside of DeAndre Ayton. Ayton, please, young man, stay out of foul trouble because Jokic is gonna try to put 2 on you early, and something tells me that he will tonight at 10 p.m. Jalen, sometimes you take a GOAT for granted. Sometimes there's greatness right in front of you on your television screen, and you take it for granted, and we're not going to let that happen to our GOAT, Simone Biles. Simone Biles is the greatest of all time, and she is at her peak performing right now. It is our time to celebrate this young woman's greatness. Jalen?
And her consistency. And I always admire not only being so very great on a large stage, but doing it at such a young age. Like you saw what Naomi Osaka was talking about, like dealing with her depression and just being young and being a public figure. The way Simone has continued to not only excel, but also handle herself with such elegance and such class has really been remarkable to see. She reminds me of like how the Williams sisters were as they started to ascend. Like when I listened to them talk, it was like they're definitely older than me. And then I was like, wait a minute, they sound like they're 10 years older than me. And I always appreciated that about them, and I appreciate that about Simone as well.
Simone Biles, the greatest gymnast of all time, at the peak of her powers right now. Jalen, I said I wasn't going to pay for the Mayweather-Paul fight, and I didn't. I streamed it illegally. I illegally streamed it. All kinds of pop-ups. I probably got viruses on my phone. However, it was an interesting show. We will break down the quote-unquote boxing match right after this. You are watching Jalen and Jacoby. Paul to get knocked out, but it was just Mayweather toying with Paul for an entire match, and at the end, they both survived, and there was no winner because it was just an exhibition. What did you think about the fight?
Keep getting them checks. That's what I think. It was an exhibition. It was easy work for Floyd, easy money for Floyd. I would have liked to see Floyd drop him, but that probably wouldn't have been good for business had he done so. And so, again, I just kind of wish the Paul brothers go away. That's just me. Because, like, it reminds me in a different way of how we elevated the Kardashians. Because, like, I don't want to say that he hasn't earned that stage. But, man, for him to take home the kind of money that I'm hearing that he's taking home based on the limited experience that he has, and I didn't know who he was a year ago, you know, keep getting them checks is what I got to say.
I'm ready for the Paul brothers to be out of my life as well, and it's going to take is a couple of knockouts for that to happen. Come on, Woodley. Come on, Woodley. Moving on, the Los Angeles Lakers are out of the playoffs, but they have some decisions to make. Pelinka says that he wants to keep the core together. What do you think that means, and what do you think they'll do?
Well, he is keeping the core together. Himself, Frank Vogel, LeBron James, and AD. That is the core. He is keeping them together. Now, if you're Kuzma, they gonna listen to calls. If you're Schroeder and you're Montrezl Harrell, the negotiating table gonna be a little tougher. Are they gonna sign and trade those players or not? It'll be interesting to see what happens with those three in particular.
I definitely agree with you. They will keep the core together.